Hello, listeners. Welcome to another episode of Demystifying SAP S4HANA. I'm Faisal, SAP consultant at PwC.
And I'm Thorsten Hübsch, partner at PwC and leading the SAP practice in Belgium and the European Center of Excellence for Sub-Strategy.
Hello, Thorsten. Welcome back. Last episode, we looked at the lessons learned from past S4HANA transformations. But also, last time was already quite a package. I'm already afraid to ask Thorsten, but I remember there was a second category of challenges and lessons learned. Am I correct?
I will probably go a bit faster over these ones because the second category is basically the IT challenges and lessons learned that we have been tackling. Mm-hmm. If you have there, then also to all the listeners out there, if you have more questions, I'm more than happy to answer, so don't hesitate also to use our email for that. But I think it is important that you get at least an overview over these ones. They are sometimes a bit less, let's say, intuitive as the first ones, which are let's say also lessons learned for simply big transformation projects as well. But diving a bit more into the IT-specific challenges, the first one is to have a very proper software logistics and transport management. Everyone who has been part of a big SAP project knows that you will end up very often with quite a big number of transport requests. You are facing the different phases of a project: design, build, test, deployment, then building up the productive system. You better get a good grip on that from day one, that you're not ending up with piles of pizza packages to at the end correct all the things. And I think many of us have been through that, maybe some of us in the early years of our experiences, that getting that at the end, getting this fabric of all the developments correct at the end is an absolute nightmare. So invest in the beginning to manage your transport requests, your developments well across the whole project timeline, making sure that only the things which are tested and approved are ending up in a productive system, that all dependencies are taken into account, so that you are not facing these challenges at a very late stage. Second is release management, that we are also going into the thinking of there is not this one solution that will be provided at the end, but that we think in releases, that we have like a basis, for example, starting with basic setup, where we can then build on top with additional releases, for example, for based on the different end-to-end processes for record to report or for procure to pay. But also later, when it comes to improvements, that we have then the first, let's say, public release, the 1.0, I would say, release, that we then also plan the releases for the future, prioritizing the capabilities that we want to have. But this is just a way of thinking, and here lessons learned is clearly to start thinking in these releases and also reflect that in your project delivery from day one, and not, let's say, moving during the project from this, let's say, release-free development to a release management. This is quite painful. Number 3 is investing a lot in holistic and efficient testing. Here I could just about testing, we could talk about that for hours. I think it is clear that you will not get around it. So we, of course, see in the actual project execution that we also have people who are following the principle hope or belief, but belief is something that belongs to the church and should not go into an SAP project. So setting up a good testing strategy with unit tests, system integration tests, user acceptance tests, thinking of maybe also going into test automation in order to allow regression tests at the end, which will not absorb all my resources. This is also an element that needs to be tackled very early, with a proper test strategy. But I think, again, most people are aware of that, but just don't forget it. Number 4 is upgrades during the project. I really disadvise that, if you will say so, to have a lot of upgrades of the solution during the project. This is really a disruptor. Try to fix if your project is not taking, 4 or 5 years from the beginning. Try to fix a release very much in the beginning, and then stick to it, because an upgrade can come with a lot of surprises that are not necessarily predictable. It will also mean that if you want to do that, you need to plan that ahead in order not to have a whole project team in idle for the time of the upgrade. I've also been part of a project where the upgrade took much longer, and then all of a sudden became a big issue. So from that perspective, quite important that you do that consciously, and if possible, avoid upgrading the solution that you started with. Next is solution documentation. I think also quite self-explanatory. Invest into it. It goes also back to the end-to-end view from requirement to solution, that you have everything packaged together. From the design, from the requirements to the design, to the testing, to the configuration documentation, that you have all that prepared in your solution documentation in order to be able to hand that over also to an AMS partner, to a support partner that can help to run and support the organization. Big challenges and lessons learned also to think very early is the next one, is the roles and rights concept. Very often also I come across projects where roles and rights are thought of very late in the stage. This should be part as of the design, where people get a clear understanding which roles will be there. We also have then, of course, the requirements around internal controls, 4I principle, segregation of duties, all elements that we know. These need to be implemented very early in the project. So don't forget about roles and rights as one of the challenges and lessons learned. Number 6. Moving on. Faisal, number 7.
Yes, let's go.
I think a lot of people who will listen to that podcast will now have tears in their eyes because of memories from the past. It's about scope management. Managing the scope of S4HANA transformation is a big challenge. It's extremely difficult. You could actually say that an S4 can do pretty much everything if you add developments to it and custom developments to it. So it would be it's an easy thing to say scope endlessly. No, it should not. You please document, define the scope very thoroughly in the beginning of the project. Continue to monitor that scope in every week, that you check if the discussions have evolved and requests are coming up. These requests for scope changes, which in the majority are scope enlargements, but we also see that scope is taken out of a project. That this is, on the one hand side, a big source for conflicts with the partner, but also for, of course, changes in budget, changes in timeline. And if this is not discussed openly, this simply leads to inefficiencies and to a lot of frustrations that you definitely do not need in an S4HANA transformation. So do not consider scope change requests as something which is bad. This is simply normal in long-lasting projects which operate in changing environments. But be aware that you have these discussions on a regular basis in the sense of a monitoring. Are we still busy with the scope that we had in the beginning? Also here, if you have in the beginning a project tender, a project contract written, the scope section is very important to spend time on. Not it's not happening rarely that I come into projects after a year or two, and people are working on it, and I'm then asking for this initial document, and I basically do not recognize the project anymore that has been described in the beginning. This is a guarantee for stress, a guarantee for additional risks to the project, to conflicts on a commercial level, on a personal level, and so here scope management, big challenge, and lessons learned to focus on this one as well.
Very important.
That's number 7. Curious for number 8?
Yes.
So important also, I mentioned it before, an S4 system is not an isolated environment. I mentioned it is very often a multi-year project. That means also there is something happening around S4, around your project, and it is important that you from day one align and also enforce that these projects are aligned, that go in parallel, that start during your project, and that have some kind of interdependency with your project. And if I say interdependency, this does not mean that you have an interface with a system that is developed somewhere else, or that a change of a process impacts you only. This also, for example, means that you have to share resources. You have one expert that's needed in multiple projects. All that needs to be organized in portfolio and program management boards. If you don't do that, you get a kind of a Darwinism. The strongest project wins, usually leading to potentially that this project, which won about the resources or about the decisions, won for itself, but the whole company, the whole organization is losing because things actually at the end do not fit together, or some others fail and will have an impact on the organization. So IT program management is really important when tackling S4 transformations, because you don't operate in an isolated environment. You're operating with multiple projects in parallel, actually in all the cases that I've seen so far. Next one.
Let's go.
We have 4 to go. Important also to reskill your IT for S4HANA. Expose them very early to the changes. And the changes are of multiple magnitudes, of course. The operating the system is less relevant if you go to the cloud. Actually not at all a big topic anymore. But reskilling in terms of how you develop how you extend in S4, how you actually work, for example, with front ends, how you use new functionalities of S4HANA. All that can only be leveraged and can only be really done in the proper new way if IT, and at the end also business, receives the right skills to understand the new concepts and the new implementation methodologies. Moving on to number 10.
Let's go.
Okay. So important also that you align the IT delivery with the methodology. Sometimes we have seen that methodologies have been introduced, but the IT organization, the IT delivery organization, is actually ticking in a completely different rhythm. So when you go for a certain methodology, make sure that also your established IT organization is aligned with that and is also adapting to that. Also many hours that we could talk about that from the experiences where people struggled or organizations struggled for quite some time to get that alignment. If there are interest in that one, don't hesitate to contact us. Number 11, and then almost done with this one. We have very often also a lack of architecture management. That is basically a bit the counterpart for the IT program management, but more on a system level. Also here, an S4HANA system is not operating in an isolated way. A lot of architectural decisions have to be taken, not only about which system is covering which scope and which capabilities, but also which interfacing technologies are supposed to be used. What about integrated data management beyond S4? All these questions around enterprise architecture are extremely important. So please onboard from day one your enterprise architect. If you don't have an enterprise architect, ask your partner to give you at least the basics that need to be considered in such big projects in order to not create an isolated environment, but something that fits together with all the other applications in your organization. Last one.
Last but not least.
Indeed. So we definitely need to look in the IT-specific challenges also in the development guidelines. And this is really a painful topic. Very often we have seen that simply the past, how SAP was extended in the past, the experts among you will recognize transactions of SE38 or SE80, which are basically the classic way how you extended your old SAP system, are continued to be used also in the new one. But this, I really want everyone to do that. One, you are basically continuing to develop legacy. Two, you are not leveraging any of the new S4HANA capabilities. But even more important, that the big change of paradigm, that you can actually not only interact with your SAP system with your SAP GUI, but also with your phone or with your iPad or any other device, is not possible if you stick to the old development approaches. So there are a lot of new technologies around which help you to leverage new capabilities. Look into these development guidelines, which actually need to be written from scratch now in S4, using new technologies to develop forms, using new technologies to extend functionality and make that available on all devices. So development guidelines must be S4HANA specific. Don't access tables directly. Use core data services. All these, let's say now, already we are on the details, but all these elements justify that you spend some time to define how you want to work in your S4HANA projects, how you want to develop in your S4HANA projects extensions. 24 lessons learned,
That's
24 challenges.
Indeed.
It has been quite a long journey.
Yes, as I said, pretty overwhelming. I wasn't lying. But any chance you can boil it down to the key lessons learned? So maybe our listeners have some takeaways that they will remember.
Yes,
from this episode.
With pleasure. I can absolutely imagine that many of the listeners will not be able to have the 24 memorized, and of course you always can look back, and I think also some of the podcast providers allow that we have the transcripts, so you have them also in writing. But maybe really summarizing this podcast around the lessons learned for S4HANA, I would boil it down to eight lessons learned. Number one is a solid core. The preparation activities of a transformation program, S4HANA transformation program, contain mainly the setup of a structured planning. One important aspect is to have a solid core team, which is from the beginning to the end carrying through. And if there are changes, that these changes are well prepared, with a good handover, also with well documentation, with good onboarding kits, so that you can also overcome these changes of the solid core team that you actually need for such a project. Next one is you need a pure and digital core. That means if you want to leverage the functionalities, stick as much as possible to the standard. And last lessons learned that we mentioned just before was to have good development guidelines. That means if you need to extend the digital core, do it in a way as it is future-proof and that it fits to the strategy and to the product strategy also of S4HANA, so it's not falling on your feet in the next upgrade. and it's also not complexifying and making your landscape more important. So that's the second one, having a solid core team and having also a pure digital core, which sticks to the standard. Number 3 is, it's a bit of a tricky one, leadership above norms. Everyone is hammering on formalities in these big projects, but from my experience, I've seen it's much more important also to have developed a level of trust, because at the end, if you are only communicating over formalities, you will not have an efficient and fast-paced project, but you will be, let's say, draining your project team. Important is that you have a strong leadership, which is developing a good level of trust in the teams and is giving the direction, where also decision boards are clearly defined, who can decide what, and who is responsible and accountable for what. So that's number 3, leadership above norms. Number 4, strong understanding of the company processes. Really dive into the essence, what a company makes tick, because this is what actually the solution at the end will be also assessed against. So let's not have like a generic S4 ERP implementation. No. Understand what the company differentiates, what the processes are that need to be supported, and focus the solution around that. Number 5, enriching the rising is essential. I mentioned it before. Don't let the go live be the end of the journey, but develop a roadmap where the go live is just an intermediate step. So going beyond the go live is takeaway number 5. Value-driven, continuous value-driven, and identify it in the beginning, monitor it, and have transparency how it is delivered over time. So number 6 was this one. Then almost last but not least, so S4HANA releases need to be taken into account. What are the, let's say, the new features in it, and make them aware to everyone, but also plan very consciously whether or not to upgrade. I mentioned it, an unforeseen upgrade during a project can be a big disruption. And now really the last one, involve the end users. Involve them as early as possible. You will see frustrations in the end users. Any change has led always to frustrations with some sort of end users that are maybe already 20 years used to work in a certain way. The earlier you are tackling that, the earlier you expose them to the system, has turned out to be the best way to tackle that. Because then these people who have been, for example, also exposed to, let's say, a bit of a premature solution long before the go live, they become then later on also your ambassadors. They have seen how the project is improving, how the solution is improving, and then also will become the people that then during go live give the confidence to their colleagues that everything will be possible to resolve of their daily tasks with the new system, and that it's also not the end of the, let's say, development journey, the go live itself. It's just, let's say, the first time that it is used productively. Future improvements will be shown, and this can only be done if you let the end users participate in that roadmap that I mentioned earlier, but that you also expose them as early as possible to the solution, so they see the evolution and get the trust in the project and the solution itself.
Thank you, Torsten. Thank you for sharing your experiences with us. You're basically a day one, considering these transformations. So hearing these insights from you is very unique. We will end this episode. Listeners, are you looking forward to the next one? Hit that subscribe button and do not miss any of them.
Thanks a lot, Faisal. Also looking forward to the next session, and then all the best to everyone who listened in, and thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you. Bye.